Welcome back, Camly. Today I'm going to be doing a cover of The Toxic Gossip Train. All aboard the Toxic Gossip Train! Heading down the tracks of misinformation. I'm just joking, guys. I just so happened to buy this ukulele just a few days before Colleen Ballinger's video. If you don't know what I'm talking about, there's a YouTuber who had some allegations against her and she made an apology song. I say apology because she didn't really apologize. Today we're going to be talking about cancel culture and self-awareness and accountability. I'm gonna put this down. I will not be singing this video, not any more than I have, but I will be crocheting. I just thought it'd be something to keep my hands busy as I talk. Here's what I'm working on right now. I'm gonna do a cardigan. This is what it's hopefully gonna look like, except different colors. I need to make 27 of these little squares and 8 of these large ones. So far, I'm just done with the green yarn, so I have 4 green ones and then 2 big green ones. These are going to be on the shoulders. If you want a video just on crocheting, I'd love to. I'm on a crochet kick right now. Let me kind of show you the color scheme and then I'll get to the point. So we got this green and then I have pink, yellow, blue. Trying to like get it all in frame so you can kind of see all the colors. This orange. Oh, that's like a really different yarn, huh? I hope that doesn't look too weird. This purple, and then the cuffs of the sleeve and like the borders will be white. I need to find some cute buttons for when I'm done. So yeah, that's what I'm working on. I need to choose what color to start next because like I said, I'm done with my green. I made all these squares in the last like 24 hours. I think I'm gonna go for this next. Self-awareness is by far one of my biggest values in life, something that I see as really important, and I think something that I was greatly lacking at a certain point in time, which is why it is now such a big deal to me. And it really just boils down to like being real with yourself, looking into who you are, your actions, how they affect others, your intentions behind things. And while we think we know ourselves and we think we know our intentions, of course I know myself, I am myself. But if you're not taking the time to really look inward and look past all of those like ego, self-protecting excuses that you make about yourself, that everyone makes about themselves, that defensiveness that's just so inherently in all of us. If you're not able to look past that, you're very likely to be making some big mistakes that hurt others without you even noticing or realizing or acknowledging. It's hard to sit with yourself. It's hard to accept that there's points where you just haven't really been a good person. We all just want to be good people and we all want to be seen as good people, but it's really hard to change and grow and become a better person when you can't look at the things you've done and take accountability, which is a word that Colleen mentions in her video a few times. I wish I could pull up a direct quote, but the kids are watching a movie on my phone right now. But you really can't take accountability while also being defensive and making excuses for yourself and essentially gaslighting people into thinking what you did is not that bad, you know? I'm talking radical accountability. I did this thing, it was wrong, I recognize that, and I'm sorry. And like I said, it's not easy. I'm not saying it's an easy thing to do. It takes practice. Once you're able to do that in little ways in your life and in your like interpersonal relationships, especially when confronted with something, when someone comes to you and says, hey, I didn't like that you did this, it hurt me in this way, and I want to make you aware of that. People won't always communicate it that nicely. You know, when you've upset someone, they're likely going to come at you with some anger. And I think that triggers that defensiveness even more. When someone's coming at you and assuming you had ill intent, it's kind of our natural instinct to just completely shut down what they're saying. Whereas we need to be looking for the truth in it, the unbiased truth of what you might have done to make them feel that way. I'm really lucky to have had people in my life that do approach me with kindness and speak to me in a way that doesn't trigger as much defensiveness. And especially when I was first practicing taking accountability, it was nearly 3 years ago. I was just in my most defensive, triggered, very much like my teenage self. I mean, I was still a teenager at the time. I was 19, but it just reminded me of that feeling of like angsty teenage, I hate everyone and everyone hates me. And when you're not sitting right with yourself already, when you're not feeling confident in being a decent person, being happy with who you are, and then someone attacks your character, says you've done something wrong, that again just makes it even harder to admit to yourself. And it's harder because you feel like they're right, but you would never admit that. And so when I was at that point in my life and just filled with self-hatred, I just really felt like a bad person and I held a lot of guilt. But when someone would suggest that I'm a bad person, it's almost like my inner child was just screaming like, I'm good, please. It's not my fault. See that I'm good. Understand that for this reason and that reason and all these things, it's their fault. It's not my fault. I'm just a kid. And I was just a kid and I felt like a little kid. But misplacing blame and denying and excusing is not taking accountability. It's not. Even though it comes from a wounded place and it's understandable that that's something you're still working through, doesn't mean it's okay to not take that accountability and own up to the fact that you might have done something that has negatively impacted others. And the thing is, we all make mistakes. We all hurt others. There's a certain point where that's just a fact of life that I had to sit with and accept. As much as I can try not to and grow and be a good person, I will inevitably hurt people. That doesn't mean it's on purpose. That doesn't mean I'm a bad person. But when you love people and you let people in your life, there is always a chance for them to be hurt by you and vice versa. With any meaningful connection, inevitably comes hurt. And if you really care about that person, the best thing you can do is validate their experience and take that accountability. And the more you work on yourself and start to realize that you're not a horrible person, you like yourself, you love yourself even. So when people point out something that you need to work on, you can understand that that's not an attack on your whole being, everything about you. A lot of the times, they're just trying to help you. And the first step in taking accountability is really forgiving yourself. If you're gonna sit there and have a pity party and be mad at yourself, that just centers you. And it's not about you. It might hurt you to know that you hurt them, but they're the one really hurting here. And so just remind yourself that you're human and you're learning and you're always gonna be learning. We never stop learning and growing. And whatever it is you're confronted with is just another part of it, another step in becoming the best version of yourself. And then from there, you just look inside and try to make sense of it. Try to understand where that came from, why you acted in that way, what part of you was present when that behavior was coming to the surface. And that might force you to sit with a part of yourself that you don't really like. We all have parts of ourselves that we don't really like, but they're just as much a part of us as the things that we do like. And while we can change our behaviors and do better in certain ways, there's certain things that we just can't change about ourselves that will always be a part of us. And we just have to learn to nurture that part in a different way that doesn't come out as hurtful to other people, and just accept it as a part of us that we need to take care of. Like if you're a jealous person and that comes out towards others in a way that you don't like, that jealousy probably isn't going anywhere anytime soon. You just need to learn how to sit with it differently and cope differently. And after you sit with yourself and recognize where these things are coming from, then talk to the person and maybe share with them what you've been reflecting on. It's tricky though. You don't want to do so in a way that feels like an excuse. First things first, just validate their experience and their emotions surrounding it. Think of it as adding context to the situation rather than excuses. Like if you feel like, oh, I need to explain myself, I need them to understand why I was acting this way, share that, help them understand where it was coming from, but understand that that is just not an excuse, and don't let it be an excuse, especially next time around. And time goes by, and hopefully the next time a similar situation comes up and those same feelings come up, those parts of yourself get triggered. Hopefully you've learned your lesson and you can deal with it differently. And if not, just take accountability and try again. And after living that way for the past several years, I feel so much more confident in who I am. And I like who I am more. A lot of my life before, I struggled with just like feeling like a bad person. I did have quite a lot of narcissistic tendencies, and I was just kind of self-centered, very focused on me and getting my needs met and not really being able to look at things from others' perspective and have empathy. No, I had empathy, but just like not a lot of it. And because of that, I felt that I was just inherently bad. Like I came out of the womb that way, and that's just really not the case most of the time. Empathy is something that you learn, and having kids has made me realize this. You know, some of us are just born natural empaths and feel for everyone and everything around us, but a lot of the times it's something that needs to be taught. We need to understand the impact we have on others, and just comprehending that everyone else is feeling just as much as we're feeling, and their feelings are just as important. And a lot of kids just aren't taught that, and a lot of parents don't live their life that way. They're not leading by example, and that can spawn children who just feel evil. And they go through life and they're selfish, and people call them out for that, and it just validates this feeling that they already have, this belief that they're just bad. And like I said, there's still just that inner child that knows they're not bad, that wants to be good, that's always just crying out in defense. And I'm honestly glad that I've been through certain things in life that have helped me realize this cycle and learn empathy, learn to be selfless, learn how to raise selfless children. And now I don't have to question whether or not I'm a good person. I know it. I've seen it. I've proved it to myself. And so even when people are coming at me and attacking my character and telling me that I am a bad person, I have peace in knowing myself and knowing that that's not true. And I don't feel a need to defend myself against that. And like I said, it's taken a long way to get here, and just a lot of practice and self-reflection. And if you're not taking the time to sit with yourself, to understand yourself, to question yourself, you will just stay stuck where you're at. Again, that's one of my biggest values in life, but you have to be careful about overcorrecting, becoming too self-aware. I don't know if there's really such thing as too self-aware, but more so just too like hyper-aware and self-critical, and overall just hard on yourself. Yeah, always strive for growth, but sometimes it's okay to just sit with where you're at and love the person you are exactly where you're at. Don't get too caught up in where you're headed and, oh, once I'm here, then I'll really be a person deserving a good life and good things. And love where you're at right now, accept where you're at right now, and don't let that self-awareness become an overly self-critical voice in your head. At this point in time, I'm recovering from that overcorrection. I went from this complete denial that I had some growing to do to, oh my gosh, I have so much growing to do. I need to be so vigilant. I need to be asking myself every step of the way if I'm making the right decision, if I'm on moral grounds right now, really keeping morality at the center of my life, which isn't a bad thing, but you can really stress yourself out looking at every single moral dilemma with such intensity and then judging yourself based on where you fall. So yeah, that's kind of been my journey with self-awareness and accountability. But I think it's very interesting how that relates to online cancel culture. If you've been on the internet, you know what I'm talking about. That mob mentality. Someone does something wrong, the whole entire world sees it, everyone's talking about it, Everyone's passing judgment on that person as if they don't have things to fix themselves, and we're all just demanding accountability from this person. And I think there's a very fine line. Obviously, when someone's doing something illegal, just completely violating another person, things that we overall deem as a society as very bad and unforgivable, do those people deserve scrutiny? Yeah. Like, they don't deserve a platform and to be online and to continue to just act like nothing happened. And so to take away their platform and cancel them, yeah, at times that is the right move. But there's other times when someone who is a public figure does something that's morally questionable, something kind of toxic. Like, for example, this whole Jonah Hill situation. There was some text messages released of him being very controlling to his girlfriend and then calling the list of rules that he has for her his boundaries, and she needs to respect his boundaries. And it opens up a very important conversation. I love that we're talking about what a boundary really is, and just in general, controlling relationships. I think it brought a lot of awareness to the fact that, hey, if your boyfriend is creating a list of rules for you to follow that involve things like don't post certain pictures of yourself and don't hang out with this person or that person, maybe look into that a little more. Maybe don't just accept that at face value. Obviously, there's some nuance in that, and every relationship is different, and people have different levels of what they think is just basic respect in a relationship versus someone just wanting control over the other person. I'm glad the conversation is being brought to light. Obviously, the way he was talking to her was not right, and he needs to address that and figure that out. Figure out that he cannot talk to his girlfriend like that. They're not together anymore, but you know, in the future, it's not cool to control your girlfriend and what she can and can't do. And that's for him to address internally, address his jealousy, address his insecurities, sit with himself and ask, why do I feel the need to control this person? Why am I so afraid of them posting a picture in a bathing suit? Do I think he deserves this level of public scrutiny for it? I really don't know. I feel like the line there is kind of blurry. There's this question of justice and consequence. He was shitty to his girlfriend, and so the consequence is millions of people seeing it and judging him and saying some really awful things about his character. And I just go to the question, like, why? What do we want out of that? Are we demanding that he has that self-awareness? Are we demanding that he does that work? And if so, if that's the reason for this, is that the best approach? Do we think this level of online scrutiny is gonna push him into a corner of self-awareness and growth? And you could argue that, you know, it's not really about him, it's about the message, it's about this conversation that it's sparking. And I'd say that's valid. I'd say the potential that a bunch of people have a better understanding of boundaries because of this conversation at the cost of this celebrity being under scrutiny for, I don't know, maybe a few months. Someone who already kind of has it easy, being that, you know, they're a celebrity and rich. That's a whole nother conversation. But I just think it's important that we are asking ourselves those questions and to understand that if we want people to take real accountability, to have that self-awareness, and ultimately to grow, then we have to try to come at them in a way that's not going to trigger that denial. We can't control the way people are going to react to things, especially when someone has hurt you. You want nothing more than for them to validate your feelings, validate your experience, and take accountability for what they've done. But you can't force that on someone. It's on them to do the right thing, especially when it comes to famous people, people who have a large audience and a lot of eyes on them, when they've done something kind of bad, morally wrong, toxic. I try to look at it from a lens of they're a person, and I shouldn't expect more of this person just because they're online. Do I think they have a little bit more responsibility than everyone else in how they use their platform and kind of message they spread to their audience? Yeah, but when something from their personal life comes to light against their will and everyone is commenting on it, I ask myself, if this was someone who wasn't famous, would I think that it's that bad, you know? Like if it was my friend's boyfriend who was messaging her a list of rules and calling them boundaries and just being controlling, you know, I'd talk to her about it and say, hey, that's kind of sketchy. I don't like the way he's talking to you. I would recognize that as toxic behavior, but my first reaction wouldn't be, oh, he needs to be publicly scrutinized and shamed for that. Because I don't think that that would help a lot of the times. Shame is not something that supports personal growth. We all know what it feels like to have done something that we regret. And there's so much shame around that, even when it is a one-on-one interaction, when it's one person that you care about coming to you and saying, hey, I feel wronged in this way. It doesn't feel good. It hurts. There's shame there. There's a lot of negative feelings that can come up, as we've talked about. And when we put people on blast in such a way, it just probably amplifies that a lot. The hardest part about taking accountability and having self-awareness is forgiving yourself. And it's a lot harder to forgive yourself when millions of people are telling you how awful you are. I just think as a society, we need to give people more room to grow, room to sit with what they've done and understand that that's a process, and understanding what that process is and applying empathy through our own experiences. Bullying someone off of the internet because they've done something that we don't like, I don't think that's gonna really get us anywhere. I think it's perfectly reasonable to call someone out when they've done something. But when it becomes this mass public shaming, I just don't see the point if we want them to grow and change and take accountability. If we want to see growth, we need to foster growth. And you know, that's not completely on us. It's not necessarily anyone's job to hold that space and walk someone through that, but I think it's the right thing to do. Again, when it comes to someone doing something that's not just kind of icky, kind of toxic, when someone is harming others and being abusive, you know, things that would get someone fired or even put in jail. Yeah, cancel them. Deplatform them. And that means Colleen, for sure. That apology video was just baffling and really had me wanting to talk about this. Talk about what it looks like for someone to actually take accountability, which she just didn't do at all. It's crazy. How are you gonna make your statement and it's that? And it's, you guys just like to be haters. I'm not a groomer. That line kills me. There's just a lot of deflecting. Like, it seems like certain buzzwords she used, manipulation, gaslighting, she was putting that on everyone else when she's so clearly the one doing that right now in front of us. You're gaslighting us, girl. And we see right through it. I think at the end of the day, she's getting what she wanted, having everyone talking about her, and she put her little apology song on streaming platforms and is copywriting it everywhere. But I think that's as far as it's gonna go for her, and she's not gonna recover from this, and she shouldn't. She definitely does not deserve a platform. Well, thanks for chatting today. A little bit of therapy, a little bit of social commentary, a little bit of crocheting. I am almost done with another square. Let me compare it to this. I feel like this yarn is just so much smaller. Yikes. Stay tuned to see how this cardigan ends up. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video, Camley.